No one bagala tu.
Oh, mwana ataliko oluzungu.
Kasoke mulubukumye muneka chai. Ulutagulukuke.
Linzo kwa lwekutte.
Miro. Sebo. Okweseza gun check out cheyera.
Jompa day yenyi.
Yali ko red.
Red yeah.
The profile red. Stand by.
Profile yogenda ba.
No, it's okay as long as you see live.
Yes.
Nenamba ozimanyi we ziri nnyo baba.
Okay, we're gonna split, stand by, silence and set.
Mama. Banange nsonyiwa kutawanye mu katono. It's live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Sharing live on YouTube, so it's on my Facebook. No. Again, they bearing the name.
Do you have any current picture now that I can use?
No, just go on the MTV Facebook page, then you just share the feed.
No number. But there's a number to sharing the video. Perfectionist, you won't do that. Yeah,
Well, a very good morning, Romeo. I'm sure it's a beautiful morning from wherever you are. It's a beautiful morning. Great thanks to the Almighty that you are all live and clear from wherever you are. I want to welcome you to this conversation. It's going to be a very great conversation today. We're live from Magere. Romeo, it was a very cold morning on my way here. It was quite chilly, but the beauty about it was is that at the end of the day, I got here safe and sound. All those watching us live from the different walks of life, I want to thank you for being a part of this conversation. My name is Andrew Chamagero, and today's conversation, it's a conversation we had sometime in November, and we are back after the elections and all that. Today, in a realize that Racer, just last week, President rebuked a couple of things, the country's army, police for heavy-handedness, and for the very first time in history, since he returned to office in January following one of the most bloodiest election cycles in Uganda's recent history, the president, Museveni, also defended some of the violence meted out against my next guest, and that is the National Unity Platform Party President, Robert Kyagulanyi, who is going to be with us this Saturday morning. Now, this conversation is going to answer a couple of questions you and I have had in the recent past. So kindly share this feed from the different walks of life, those on Facebook and those on YouTube. You're so much welcome to this morning. Good morning, Honorable Kyagulanyi.
Good morning, Andrew.
It's Miracle. Yes.
Pleasure having you.
Good to have you again. It has been, I think, like we're getting closer since we last had a conversation. It has been very interesting. First of all, you had the president's speech, and that's the point. They could not wait to hear you the president's speech. That was last week. He said people like your party, the NUP, try to ignite the main politics. What is your response to that?
Well, I'll get to the Kyagulanyi allegation later, but like you said, many people couldn't wait.
Yeah.
On the contrary, I couldn't believe, and I'm sure many other people couldn't believe that this is the same Museveni that was speaking. I mean, while we know that he's such a hypocrite, while we know that he's a person who lies with a straight face and wide open eyes, but again, this one was taken a notch higher. I mean, this is Museveni, who just in the short period before was, uploading security for beating me. He was uploading SFC for torturing me in Arua.
He said they did it right.
He said they beat me very well. Now this is the same person, again, speaking as if he's an opposition activist, condemning the torture, the brutality that is made by his own forces I mean, they do it on behalf of him. They beat and murder Ugandans on behalf of him, and certainly on, on his orders.
What do you mean when you say that he sounds like an opposition activist in one or the other?
Because he comes to say exactly what we have been saying for the longest time. We've been condemning the torture, the brutal torture, the murder, extrajudicial murder of citizens. I mean, Museveni himself came out and applauded security for murdering citizens, you know, for pacifying the country by murdering citizens. And now he is here condemning it at the same time. Of course, besides the hypocrisy that he always represents, we are sure that he is saying this because the pressure is much. Museveni is
Pressure from who?
the pressure from the citizens of Uganda and the pressure from the international community. You saw just the other day his friend, Omar el-Bashir, is going to be handed to the ICC, and you know we took Museveni to the ICC. So he knows what befalls dictators like himself. He is seeing in the near future. So he's trying to run away from that reality and leave these others that he orders to do those atrocities. I mean, this is characteristic of Museveni. You saw how we used Kayihura to brutalize Ugandans, but when Kayihura was sanctioned by the ICC, Museveni left him like that.
But Honorable Kyagulanyi, Museveni was on record last week. He said that there is no party that has upheld the human rights in this country like the NRM party. And he was alakat on that. He said, well, there are a few things that could go under the carpet, but the human rights, he says that they have maintained it. What do you make of that?
Well, I call it hypocrisy, and if hypocrisy was a person, that would be Museveni. I mean, this is a person who, under his command, his son is overseeing the brutal arrest, kidnaps of people. Right now, as we speak, citizens are being held against the law in military detentions. James Mobiru, an elected councillor, is in Machinde military detention for dressing the way I'm dressed. Many young people, I mean, people have been castrated, eyes plucked out. Women have been raped. You know this. Everybody knows this. And Museveni has always been applauding people that have been doing this simply because they were keeping him in power. Now he sees it's going down south, and he is kicking everybody else under the bus. And very soon, he will be picking these people and handing them to the ICC. But it is him that we are going after, because he is the chief priest of that brutality.
And he said that NUP and the likes behave like terrorists, want to bring Kyagulanyi and Amin. What is your response to this? Because you're saying he's hypocrite, he doesn't respect the human rights and all. But he says your party is behaving like terrorists, not online, not offline. You want to bring back the anarchy that came with the Amin regime and the separation of the Kyagulanyi sect.
Do we have the law in Uganda? Why doesn't the law work on us if we're behaving like terrorists? I mean, this is the same person whose security minister called us terrorists for speaking the truth. How come they have not, the law has not worked on us? Museveni has always been trying to use tribal narratives whenever he has no argument, you know? What do you mean? In Kyagulanyi, because I'm a Muganda, you want me to apologize because I'm a Muganda? I certainly will not apologize for that. But again, that has been Museveni over time. Every time he has no argument, he does exactly that, you know? Museveni is the only person that can be compared to, I mean, in fact, even worse. He's doing what the Amin regime did times 10 or times, you know, more than 10. So he has no moral authority to compare us with.
Then, Honorable, one would say that maybe Museveni has respect for the human rights, but maybe his other structures, the directives, are not adhered to by his people. What do you make of this when he comes on the TV, on the media, national media, and says that, look, I've directed this and this, but it has not been done. This time I'm going to take charge. What do you make of that?
Then let him be honest and say he is not in charge. He is either a hypocrite or he's not in charge, or both.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, how do you say I've instructed my forces to observe human rights, and then human rights are being abused under the watch of your son? He came on national TV and said the SFC, which was eventually under the command of his son, is the one that has been carrying out these abductions. The abductions, we mean people, citizens being abducted, tortured. Some have missed, not being seen again. Chibalama John Bosco, we've never seen him again. Our brothers from Kiseka, we've not seen them again. Those that have been lucky to resurface have shown up with missing eyes, with missing teeth, with the smashed manhoods, women raped and all that. All this is being done under the watch of Museveni and Museveni's son and his close Kakun. What do we make of that? It is sanctioned by him or he's not in charge? Or both, like I said.
November, at least 54 people, for the record, were shot dead while demonstrating your arrest in Mayuge district. In this admission and claim of indiscipline, part of the justice you've been calling for, and for those who lost their lives, do you believe that the more we keep agitating and rather advocating for them to be released or to resurface, it will be justice enough?
Of course, justice delayed is justice denied. I mean, many people, even before the election, they've been abducted, and like I said, some have never shown up again. Some have shown up dead, and others have shown up severely tortured. We've been agitating for that, and just the other day, Museveni also comes out to agitate for the same. You are condemning the people that are under your supervision for criminality. Why have they not been arrested? Napoleon, this guy from military police, is on camera beating journalists. How come none of them has been arrested? You know, you have seen even the BBC has documented the murder in cold blood of citizens, you know, on camera. How come no single person has been apprehended for that? It clearly shows that Museveni is just acting to the gallery. Like I said, he's under pressure from the international community. He wants to put up an act, which certainly doesn't mean. It never says what it means.
And then that brings me to my other question. Honorable Kyagulanyi, you took President Museveni to the ICC. Why do you think the ICC would be a good place to resolve Ugandan matters? Doesn't that serve the narrative? Everyone, you know, a couple of people have heard that you are pushing a foreign agenda. If you're taking him to the ICC, have we exhausted the options around the region? Have we exhausted the options around our own country?
First of all, Andrew, I want to remind you that we are part of the international community.
Yes, we signed the wrong.
We are part of the UN. And secondly, I will quote Museveni himself. He took Joseph Kennedy to the ICC. Was he serving a foreign agenda? But most importantly, I'll tell you that the justice system here has more or less been twisted. You have seen all the, you know, matters that have gone to court, matters of human rights. Since I was tortured in Arua, nothing has been done. We have not gotten justice. And all other Ugandans here, you know, even right now as we speak, a matter was taken to court challenging the trial of civilians in a military court, which is illegal. That matter took years, the Kabazuguruka case, to be resolved. And even when it was resolved, you see that they are playing a delaying tactic, while innocent young men and women are rotting in the military detentions. Like I said, an example is Wizi and James Mobiru, a councillor who was elected, is being kept in Machinge torture chambers. Why? Because they want to intimidate people. So there's no rule of law here. And when it does not work here, we take it internationally. So and most importantly, I want you to know that Museveni feeds off the international community.
How?
By borrowing money which you and your children and your children's children are going to pay, the same money that is being used to keep us as slaves. And that is why we try to control him also from there, because that is where he gets the support.
So when you go international, you're blocking his feeds of funds.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that. Yeah. Yesterday, rather, when he was addressing the nation, there was something he actually highlighted too. He said Kaira was ideologically bankrupt. Do you believe in that?
Shame. Shame as a person who shares relation with the late Andrew Utakome Kaira, I feel offended. But again, as freedom fighters, all freedom fighters, you know. I'm sure they are equally offended to see that Museveni disrespects Dr. Andrew Takome Kaera, a doctor of criminology, for being ideologically bankrupt. It's only that Museveni has been a con man all his life. He conned people, and even people who fought with him. I will remind you that Museveni hid one time in my grandfather's house.
In your grandfather's house?
Yes, the late Joseph Warakira. He knows it. He knows what I'm talking about. So Museveni has been this kind of person that comes out to brag, that comes out to speak because he cannot be answered. But history is known. Okay? Museveni did not capture the Greater Buganda. The whole of Chagwe was captured by Kaira and the Uganda Freedom Movement and all these other, freedom fighters that joined him and supported him and worked with him. What happened to Kaira? He was arrested because Museveni feared competition and taken and charged with treason, but later released in 1987 because there was no crime against him. This same hypocritical Museveni that says he does not murder political opponents cannot tell the people who killed Kaira. Okay, Kaira was arrested by Museveni, taken to Luzira, but because they could not contain him and they could not challenge him legally, he was killed in cold blood. He was murdered in the same year in Machinde Rumoli. So Museveni cannot explain this. He should be ashamed of himself. He should know that all history is quoted. He is not the master of history. He has written books, and his own books contradict him. Go read his Mustard Seed. Go read What's Africa's Problem. Go read Pecos Kutesa's book. Go read, all the documentation will put him to shame. So he should be ashamed to disrespect the memory of Andrew Takome Kaira, because that memory is still fresh in many people of Uganda.
Well, now, during political season, we have just had that conversation just to tap a little bit of what the Honorable has been paying attention to. Those who are joining us live, we're live on the different platforms, and I want to thank you. Let's keep the tweets a little bit, Sivo and Sen. I understand it's a critical morning, but let's stay calm. Honorable, during the political season, your name came up on a daily. This is the first interview we are actually doing since... this is the first interview you're doing since the political election ended. What have you been up to?
Quite a lot.
Like?
But I'll say, generally, I've been about removing the dictatorship of Museveni. That's what I'm preoccupied with, and that is what every Ugandan should be preoccupied with. Reading our nation of the Museveni pandemic.
So that's what you've been running up to. I am a little bit touched when you talked about Kaira. I could see the energy. You feel that people who have shedded their blood for this motherland have not been rewarded with the justice and fairness of this country. So, given that you say that the president of this country and the powers that be, they have not paid what should be given to the Ugandans who sacrifice for the country, then what could be the solution? How best do we move from here as a country?
The solution is being honest, being true to your word. That is what we are told as African men. Be true to your word. As simple as that. Museveni should remember that Chikunyu meeting that they had with Kaira. What they discussed. He should remember, Mzee Naduli has always reminded him, when Museveni reached out to Kabaka Mutebi in that meet to call him to, convince him to have people support him, what was the understanding? The understanding, among others, was human rights, was decency, was democracy. That is what we struggled for. But again, like I said, Museveni is one person that will say a word and shamelessly go against it. This is the same person that wrote in his first book that Africa's problem are the leaders that overstay in power. He has been in power for 36 years and does not want anybody to remind him of what he said. This is the same person that said he would never be president at the age of 75. Okay.
Then it brings me to the question, Honorable. Is it the Ugandans, we the people, are we gullible enough that we don't see this? What have we missed as a country? Because, like you said, he's a very cunning man. Haven't we woken up our eyes and sight to see the cunningness that comes with it?
Well, I'll borrow the words of Dr. Besigye when he was on TV recently, and I want to agree with him. He said that when somebody oppresses you, over time, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 35 years, 36 and counting. Then, while you look at your oppressor, you should also look in yourself
As a
and know
person.
that sometimes it might be your stupidity. And somebody quoted, and I also agree, that when God is punishing at the end of the day, he will punish those that oppress people, but he will also punish those oppressed people even much more for allowing this person
God is
to
going to
oppress
punish
them.
us.
Okay, so we probably also have a problem. How come I'm the only one who is talking about this? I'm sure the journalists have been affected, the business people have been affected, the artists have been affected, the doctors have been affected, the lawyers, everybody has been affected by the Museveni misrule. How come only a handful of people talk about this? This should be the business of every Ugandan if this nation matters to you. Just this morning, and by the way, I want to also grab this opportunity to congratulate my good friend Dr. Ichilema, HH in
Have you seen the fire in that country?
well,
The
well,
tension?
Zambia has done it. They've shown us. But this is something we should have done long time ago. Lungu tried to arm twist the voice of the Zambian people.
cameras
but
were
he
watching.
couldn't. The cameras were watching. Cameras were watching all the time.
Did
there
you
in
even
Uganda.
sleep? You're following this.
Of course, I'm following this so much, and I'm sure everybody else is following. So, like I was saying, Andrew, that we probably also have a problem. You know, today, our struggle has been mainly a common man's struggle. The barbers, the border riders, the DJs, the musicians, but everybody should be equally involved in this. It's unfortunate that Museveni is using the oppressed people of Uganda to oppress them even further. And we must turn this around if we must free ourselves.
Now, Honorable, you really had a very great close. I really want to thank you. The feedback online here, the questions keep coming through, but I'll stick to what we actually have here. You proved your clout in the recent elections around the Buganda region, the central region, with a resounding win. How do you intend to sell the brand and the ideology of NUP beyond the central? Because central and some parts of east went red.
I'll tell you this, my brother, that is a wrong narrative. That's a very misleading narrative, trying to paint a picture that change is only desired in the central.
Central, yes.
That is wrong.
Okay.
You saw what happened in Arua when we were there.
Yeah.
You saw what happened in all of northern Uganda. You saw what happened in western Uganda, in Chiruhura. The military had to beat people so that they don't, in quote unquote, ashame General Museveni for showing support for change.
From where it comes from.
So this is everywhere, not only here in the central, everywhere in Uganda. And I'll tell you that just like we told you that largely Western Uganda did not vote because they did not allow them. The whole of Northern Uganda, they did not allow people to go to the polls. Okay? Internet was switched off, electricity was switched off in order to push this narrative. Museveni is pushing the central narrative so that he can put that tag, the tribal tag.
So it is
on us.
Museveni's call is saying that you're building a Buganda party.
That is nonsense. That is nonsense. They're trying to make me feel sorry about who I am, and I will never feel sorry for who I am. I am proud, and every Ugandan should be proud of who they are. Okay? And he should also be ashamed because Museveni has been largely supported by people in the central. Why wasn't it a central affair when he was getting all these votes here? You
Okay,
know?
Honorable NP, going back to the party beat, do you at any one time regret having stood for presidency? Or after standing for the presidency, what big lessons did you learn? I followed some of the trail. There were some trails I didn't follow, but I saw some recordings that don't make to the media eye.
Yeah.
They're gross. I condemn them in the strongest terms possible. But do you regret going on that journey?
Of course, I don't regret. And if I had to do it all over again, I'll do exactly that, even more radically and more aggressively. Because I believe that what we were doing and what we continue to do is the right thing to do. So I don't have any regret.
There was a lot of criticism when your family actually was evacuated, I think shortly after the election. I think we were heading there. A lot of criticism came up through just before the election in anticipation. Some supporters felt betrayed. What was the logic behind this?
Somebody feels betrayed when
When you took your family.
take my family out of danger. I mean, I would do that anytime. I would, evacuate my family anytime they are in danger. And that's what anybody should do when they can afford it. Yeah.
NUP is the strongest political party in the 11th Parliament, but also it is the youngest political party in Parliament. How ready is the party handling the opposition allies? How are you holding the allies there?
Starters, we are not only intending to play opposition politics. Because we are not the opposition, we are the option. Okay? So,
Bring it again, bring it. I like that. I like that. You are not the what?
no, we are not the opposition, we are the option.
Nice.
We are only twisted into that position, and like we said, we shall use every platform to push for the agenda of change. Of course, we are in touch with all like-minded people, and I must tell you that even within the regimes, people that are not as outspoken as we are, that agitate for change silently, that are supporting us, that are with us, and we continue to, to build synergies. But even within the forces, the open forces of change, which you like to call the opposition, we are pushing for, cohesion, because we've said this right from the beginning, that nobody can do this alone. To uproot a dictatorship, we must work together. And let us look at the examples. Malawi served as an example. Unfortunately, we didn't hit to it. Now we have an example of Zambia that just uprooted a propping dictator. Lungu had started picking terrible lessons from Museveni, and I'm very glad that the people of Zambia prevailed, and I'm sure the people of Uganda and all people of Africa will take heed of that example.
Okay. Your opponents insist that your party is already doing deals in government, but is this a way to grow strength as a party?
What do you mean? Can you ask that again?
There is word in the corridors of power that some people within the NUP are sealing deals with the party, with the government. What do you make of this?
Well, I would say that just like every other dictatorship, they will try as much as possible. If they cannot coerce, then they will convince. And if they cannot convince, then they will do otherwise. They use carrot and stick.
Oh, yeah.
And those weak-minded people will certainly betray the struggle, And like we've always been saying, we are going to see everybody by their deeds. Of course, just like some people in the regime are reaching out to us silently and telling us, friends, we are with you, although we cannot speak out because of fear of this and that. There's a possibility that the regime is reaching out to some of our rank and file. But like I've just said, we will see them by their deeds. And in any case, that these people are not accountable to me as an individual. They are accountable to the people of Uganda who elected them, and they elected them to those offices with certain expectations. So the people of Uganda, like I've always been reminding those politicians, are their bosses, to whom they are accountable.
Okay. Now, NUP is not yet a member to the iPod. And I really want you to have your thoughts about this matter. Are you as saying that just rejecting the opportunities iPod presents, or you come off with a narrative like, we know what you're doing and we're watching you from that far, or we have learned how unfair the platform is and we won't come into it?
Well, we have our own reservations about iPod, and I will tell you that from what we read of iPod now, it's more or less a legitimizing tool of the regime. We believe in dialogue, but like Mandela told us, it's free people that dialogue, not putting your boot on my neck and you say, let's talk. So there's no sense really us being in an institution aimed at dialogue when the regime is doing what it's doing, when we cannot be allowed to have our political activities, legal political activities, where we cannot be allowed to build our legal structures, where our leaders are under illegal incarceration, where our paraphernalia is illegally criminalized and so on and so forth. So when that is still the case, then you don't expect us to be part of that iPod because it doesn't make sense to us in any way.
Wow.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of you've changed the entire perspective. I was looking at you. It is a yardstick to justify the current.
Certainly.
Okay, now in relation to international relations, let's just get to the border. You've had the pandemonium between Uganda and Kenya sparked by William Ruto the other day. He was denied to come here, which is the first in the region we've had since 2019. So international relations with our regional neighbor has been sinking deeper and deeper. Rwanda, March 2019, Kenya 2020, over subsidized exports. How can we deal with this to mend the fence? Because you can't hate the neighbor in the south, Rwanda, and again you have a problem with Kenya. Again, how best can we go about this one?
Well, I'll tell you that Museveni and his modus operandi is a disaster, not only to Uganda, but even to our neighbors. I mean, many of Ugandans, especially the males, had a good relationship with Rwanda. See what Museveni did. But coming to Kenya, of course, the people of Kenya are the ones that have the right to determine who leads them. And I encourage them to use that right, to use that mandate, to decide who governs them. You know, as brothers, you know that the people of Uganda and people of Kenya have always looked out for each other. When we were suffering with the dictatorship of Idi Amin, many refugees were housed in Kenya, and we don't take that for granted. Even during the Obote times, many Ugandans fled to Kenya. And in 2007, when there was election violence, Uganda returned the favor. I mean, when I was incarcerated in Kenya, I mean,
I saw Tom in Nairobi drumming
Bulu and Arua, you saw the people of Kenya standing up for us. So the people of Uganda and the people of Kenya are joined in a moral, fabric that cannot be broken. However, like I said, it's the people of Kenya to decide who rules over them. I can only say that the people of Kenya have seen what kind of disaster Museveni and Musevenism has been. So there's, I would really encourage.
Pull the tune. Museveni and Musevenism.
Exactly.
Museveni is a character. Musevenism then becomes a routine or a trait.
Yeah.
You're throwing it to Kenya.
Yes, I'm telling the people of Kenya and the leaders of Kenya that there's no good example to pick from Museveni. You know, you want a leader that is going to, what kind of lesson is, moral lesson is Museveni going to give to leaders of Kenya? What are we exporting? Exporting the injustice, exporting murder, exporting torture, exporting democracy, exporting dictatorship. What do we want to export to Kenya? So I would encourage the people of Kenya to avoid Museveni, to stay as far as possible from Museveni and Musevenism.
When you talk about justice, I'm looking about the people who lost their lives during elections. Some of them, there was one I saw you around the roundabout of Musega when you're coming back from Masaka, I think. The ones who lost their lives during the election, how best could they be compensated, or their families?
Well, first of all, we are not after compensation. We don't want people to be killed. We don't want you to kill our children and then you pay us, like Museveni was saying. They murder people wantonly on the streets, and he says we are going to pay them. How much money are you going to pay the family of Frank for killing their son? How much money are you going to pay the children for taking away their father, their breadwinner? How much money are you going to pay for the parents for killing their children? So we just don't want our children to be killed. Like I said, around Rusega, that was Frank Senteza, who was murdered by military police. under the command of one Napoleon. And all this was on camera. Museveni is pretending not to know that. What a hypocrite.
Let's go still back in the diaspora. Many Ugandans have suffered, and we don't have, should I call it, strong functional embassies in the diaspora. We only have a pact with Georgia as a country, but then we have Kuwait, we have Abu Dhabi, and all those. You've had these people in the Biyumbas suffering. How best can a nation navigate this?
I've seen it with my eyes. I've seen Ugandans being traded, being sold, like the 18th and 19th century slave trade. I've seen that. It happens as we speak. Every day at Entebbe Airport, girls as young as 13 are being put on the plane to go and serve as maids. But you know, lots of abuse, lots of torture and dehumanization have been ongoing. Our embassies have been reduced to playing politics and to spy on Ugandans that are expressing themselves, especially on social media. That explains why.
When you come to Ugandans expressing themselves on social media and being spied on, now that brings me to the issue of Lumbuye.
Yes.
Who should I say is a fanatic of you?
Not a fanatic of me. He speaks the truth. Although, of course, I'll tell you that sometimes some Ugandans express themselves in a way that I may slightly disagree with, but like one writer said, I disapprove of what you speak, but I will defend with my life your right to say it. When Stella Nyanzi was expressing herself, although sometimes we didn't agree with the language that she was using, she had all her right and we stood with her and supported her. When Frank Ashumba was expressing himself, sometimes I disagreed with this direct attack on the Buganda institution, but he had the right to express himself. Similarly, Fred Kajubirumbi has a right to express himself and he has a right to safety. Many Ugandans feel safe criticizing the Museveni dictatorship from a safe distance because they know what happens to people that speak the truth here. Many of them are killed.
This is a guy who is advocating for a genocide against fellow Ugandans, announcing our king dead, insulting the Buganda institution like you're saying. Yes, we have a right and freedom of expression, but to what limits do we have to go?
Well, as an individual, I've not seen, and I'll be very glad if you provide evidence to the fact that he announced our king dead, or to a fact that he announced that he called for violence, for genocide. I've personally not seen that evidence. I'll be glad if you show that to me. But I have seen some people that have been with members of parliament and have been openly advocating for the continued murder of Ugandans. You remember on the 18th and 19th of November last year, one blogger came out openly bragging, "We are the National Resistance Movement and we shall kill all of you," and even he called for the murder of my own friend. I've not seen the person lives in Uganda. I've not seen them being apprehended. So these are the double standards and hypocrisy that we talk about. But anyway, like I was saying, everybody has a right to express themselves, and if anyone has a problem with them, we have national law and we have international law, and no crimes, especially internationally, can go unchallenged.
Of course, two wrongs don't make it right. And those ones just joining this conversation, we are live from Magere here in Chadondo, and we are with Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi, the NUP National Unity Platform Party President, and we're looking at a couple of things. Honorable, what's your thought about how COVID-19 was handled? The first wave, the second wave, the execution, the implementation, the funds.
The funds. The COVID pandemic was in the first place politicized to the benefit of the regime and utterly mismanaged. Do you remember that fighting the COVID-19 pandemic is fighting a disease? It's only in Uganda that we are fighting a disease by, empowering the military and the police. We fight the disease with guns. When I was still in parliament, billions of money, dollars, were borrowed. And like I've always been saying, you, your children, and your children's children are going to pay that money. The mismanagement, you've seen it according to the parliamentary reports and the Auditor General's reports. Although the culprits are only elevated, you know, they are not punished. But the corruption messed it up completely. It was politicized to help Museveni keep in power, to hound the opposition, blocking communication, blocking campaigns, while everywhere else, everything else goes on like today as we speak, or even in the recent past, in the first lockdown, nothing was being observed like an SOP. It was largely politicized. You saw the constant passing of soldiers and police officers, not doctors and medics. While the medical schools were closed, the military and police schools were open. That is how the Museveni regime handled the pandemic. And that explains why it went out of hand and continues to go out of hand.
Some NRM bloggers online, they say that your campaigns were the super spreader of the pandemic. That as soon as you were done with the campaigns and all, numbers started to surge.
Well, allow me to remind you that the first rally and the first procession were done by the Minister of Health herself, General Tachin. You know? Now, what kind of hypocrisy is
Super
that?
spreader.
You know? While churches were closed to worshippers, they were actually open to NRM campaigns. What do you make of that? Allow me to remind you that the NRM carried out its primaries by lining up on the back amidst the pandemic, the height of the pandemic. What do you make of that? So these people, they even forget what they said yesterday or what they did yesterday. It's just a bunch of irresponsible people.
Let's talk about the places of worship. There is some gentleman who sued government for keeping the mosques, churches, whatever places of worship being closed during the pandemic, where we are today. As a leader who, I like the word you say, we are the option.
Yeah.
How best can we navigate this country? Should we open these places of worship?
I'll tell you that it all begins with honesty and responsibility. We should first of all agree that the COVID-19 pandemic is here with us, and it probably is not going to go away tomorrow. How do we go about this in a moral way, in a decent way, but in a practical and realistic way? If we are to maintain this hypocrisy of the Museveni regime, then we are going to go around in circles. We are going to lie to each other. We are going to block our places of worship while people are converging in other places. I'll tell you that the lockdown is largely where the media sees. Go outside Kampala. You know, it's business as usual. So what are we doing really?
And that brings me to schools. Should we use the same approach when it gets to schools?
Certainly. I mean, other countries have opened up schools. The schools have been closed more or less for 2 years now. For how long is this going to go on? Look at, I was talking to my wife the other day because she runs an NGO that largely focuses on uplifting the girl child, the Caring Arts Uganda, and we were in Ruwero the other day with Ruwero Triangle MPs, who are looking at the statistics by UNICEF. 22.5% rise in child pregnancy, and it's largely, linked to the lockdown. Now, what kind of mothers are we going to have? What kind of generation are we building? So it is important that we put the funds and the facilities and the logistics that we have to what functions. If we have a government that does not only focus on keeping itself in power and silencing critical voices, but serving the people, then we would have certainly come up with a solution to ensure that we keep our children in school, but observing necessary SOPs that are not only to silence people, but to benefit the wananchi.
That makes a lot of sense. When talk about that brings me, just last month, the Prime Minister, Honorable Nabanja, was very furious. I'm sure you must have seen this on media. she was very furious about the relief that was sent to Kasese. She was like, this is substandard, this is below the belt. And she has, flipped tables in there. And this fishmonger, like some people want to call her, seems to be like she's shocked at what she's seen. What do you make of all this?
For Nabanja to say she's shocked is hypocrisy.
Again,
she was in parliament with us when we were looking at the bins that they were serving people.
Really?
in the previous in the first lockdown. She must have seen the because she was not prime minister then, but she certainly saw the food, the substandard food that was being served to our people, and that has been the case. You've seen the not only the amount or the number of masks, but also the quality. If you have a poor quality government, it is only going to give poor quality services. You understand? So Nabanja should not pretend to be shocked. It shouldn't shock her. That is their modus operandi. That is what they do. That is NRM and Museveni. That is how rotten they are. And they should come to terms with that reality.
And then that brings me to the question, what do you have to say about the fishmonger cabinet?
What do you want me to say about it?
Because he said he's using people you're not used to. He's using people with a rare gene of dynamic at play that you don't usually see these faces, led by Nabanja, of course.
Well, we see these faces, I'll tell you. And I'll tell you that this is an illegitimate government. Okay? I'll tell you that Museveni is an illegitimate president. The guy you are talking to right now is supposed to be the president of Uganda because he is the people, he is the one the people elected. But because Museveni, by the barrel of the gun, forced himself to the people, he's trying to change the narrative to divert every here and there. And that's why he keeps, making all stunts. But I'll also remind you that even the people in office, these are only office bearers. They don't have the power. How else would the prime minister of a country come and claim that she's being intimidated?
Mafias.
Yeah, mafias. Everybody has been talking about mafias. Who are the mafias? I mean, ask the chief mafia himself.
Honorable, let's look at the way forward as a country. NUP 2022. We just have a few more years to the next election. The government, I'm sure it's already having its strategy. What is there for the NUP? What are the plans like? If someone is out there and supports the NUP and they want to know how best can they plan, what's their call to action?
For starters, it's important for our people, all our people, to know that we are being held at gunpoint. It's very, very important for us to know that. You saw that people went to the polls, but their voice was suffocated. That is the status quo. That is where we are. And we shouldn't wait for 2026, 2024, not even 2022. Do what you can whenever you can do it. Yeah, that is how, that's how dictators are overpowered. You saw Bashir, it was just about a year or thereabout himself having won with over 80% of the vote, but he was removed by the people. That's how the Mugabe's, the Gaddafi's, the Blaise Compaorés of this world have been removed. And that is the same way that Museveni is. Museveni is not a democratic leader. So don't even deceive yourself that, okay, it's politics as usual, we have come out of an election and we are going into another election. No, that is not the case. Our strategy has always been taking on the Museveni regime, both locally and internationally. And like I briefed you, internationally, we are trying as much as possible to make it clear to the international community, which is responsible for keeping Museveni in power. You see, Museveni...
So do you mean when we vote, it doesn't count? Someone sits out there in the void and decides for Ugandans in the international forums?
No. I am telling you that our vote doesn't count because the rebels that took over our country by force in 1986 are still behaving in the same way. They are still the same people that deceive us, put on a democratic face, but when it suits them pull out the gun and muzzle the voices of the Ugandans. However, the international community is equally responsible because the United States of America gives almost $1 billion every year to the Museveni regime, to the Museveni military, which Museveni military is responsible for killing Ugandans, for murdering, raping people, and keeping the democratic voices suppressed. The same to the European Union, the same to all these other donors. So it is our responsibility to go onto them. You saw Ugandans recently demonstrating against the IMF money that they were giving to Uganda. Why do you support an illegitimate regime? Why do you keep giving money to this regime, which money is being used against the people?
But you see, Honorable, you're saying it's an illegitimate government.
Yeah.
You went to courts of law and you lost trust in the courts of law, and the courts of law announced.
Just a minute. When you say you don't trust the courts of law, what does that make them, legitimate or illegitimate?
Well, it depends on the context.
Yeah, but whatever context it depends on. When you go to the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice is clearly biased and is clearly behaving in an illegal manner, and you saw that Justice Kisache also came out. These were not my words. These words were also echoed by another judge of the same Supreme Court. You saw all that mess. You know, let us pretend not to have seen that. So having seen all that, am I still wrong to say the process is illegitimate? Because, I mean, the law was abused by the officers of the law themselves. Wow. That's why I continue to say the Museveni regime is illegitimate.
I'm talking the legitimate.
You're definitely.
Great conversation. We have been in the lockdown for 42 days. At least I was lucky. My job allows me to, fly and come out and talk to a couple of people. Ugandans have been in the lockdown. The economy is bad.
Yeah.
The economy is bad. As a leader, how best can we revamp our economy to bounce back?
For starters, I want to sympathize with our people that have been deliberately impoverished. And most importantly, the common people. I mean, borders, etc. You see, this is a kind of regime that believes that you cannot rule over prosperous people. You can only rule over poor people. Explains why it's the lockdown that is being used to chase people off their land. It's a lockdown that is being used to coerce taxi operators out of town, and even to lock borders out of town. So we are standing with them. And even when the regime pretends to reach out to them, certainly the corruption doesn't allow it. For starters, you cannot claim that you're reaching out to 500,000 people out of 44 million people. And also, even those 500,000 that they claim to reach out to, and they are not reaching out to them.
Some have not received.
You know how the Museveni regime operates. Corruption is their middle name. For starters, everything begins with governance. When there's no governance, I can guarantee you that the economy will continue sinking down. Let's take examples of Zimbabwe. When there's misgovernance, when there's corruption, the government is not going to function to the benefit of the people.
So, what's the way forward with all these, the chaos in the education
Governance.
sector, in the government, in the economy? How best can we look forward to a new hope as Ugandans?
Well, some writers say it all rises and falls with leadership, So for as long as the main agenda of those that rule over us is to stay in power, everything is going to be secondary. We are going to be amidst a pandemic, but all the budget is not going to go to the health sector. It is going to go to security. We are going to have an education crisis, but the budget and minds of those that rule over us are not going to go to finding solutions on how best we can fix our education and how best we can save our children. No, it is going to go on how best to to keep themselves in power. That is why the focus has always been, empowering security. You'll find LDUs, you'll find the police officers and military focusing not at ensuring people have face masks or ensuring there's vaccination, but ensuring that people are kept in their homes. It all begins and ends with the leadership. We need, for starters, to get rid of rulers, and I'm deliberate about calling them rulers and not
The
leaders.
choice of word.
Yeah. We
Rulers.
must be able to get rid of rulers and get leaders and get people whose sole aim is to find solutions for the population and not to themselves. Before we do that, we are going to be going in circles. Museveni and his regime do not care whether you live or die. No, they don't. All they care about is staying in power and continuing to loot our country and impoverish the people of Uganda.
Well, this brings me to the very last one. We always save for the best for the last, yeah? What do you make of Kabaka's speech? I have never heard this sound. And I saw you picked a couple of, check on the speech. What do you make of this speech?
Well, I'll say Ssaabasajja Kabaka was spot on. He spoke his mind, and I believe the mind of many Ugandans, not only the Baganda, but Ugandans. I'll tell you that Buganda is not just a tribe, it's a nation. Not all people that live in Buganda are Baganda, it's a collection of people. And I must salute the Baganda for being the least tribal people, because it is here in Buganda where you're going to find welcoming for everybody. Although this hypocrite keeps wanting to drive the tribal narrative, but he can't succeed because the reality says something different. Anyway, going back to the Kabaka's speech, he was clear. He said to bring back, to restore the kingdom of Buganda, we had to get actively and practically involved in removing the dictator. Those were his words. And I remind you that those words are as alive now as they were some 36 years ago in 1986. To remove the dictator, everybody will have to get practically involved, because everybody is equally affected. You're not going to sit there and think it's a business of only the border riders, a business of only the poor, a business of only the uneducated. No, this is a business for everybody. The pest that has eaten the fabric of our country is called Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. That is the biggest disaster that has befallen us. And until we get rid of the Museveni pandemic, we are still going to be moving in circles. So he was spot on, and he indeed reminded us that what they agreed about before he was convinced to support the Museveni rebels was the issue of human rights, was the issue of democracy. Unfortunately, all these have been thrown out of the window by the Museveni regime.
Well, Honorable, as a final, I really want to thank you for taking time off your busy schedule, because you're actually planning quite a lot of things. But I'm extremely very grateful to taking time to give us an ear and share with us your opinions. As we're finalizing, what are your last words to Ugandans? That's your camera, take it away.
Well, to the people of Uganda, I'll tell you that it's not over until it's over. We all must get involved in the effort to remove the dictatorship of Museveni. It does not matter whether you are NUP, it does not matter whether you are DP, whether you are FDC, whether you are UPC, or whether you are NRM. Misgovernance affects us equally, and this pandemic should have shown all of us that we are all vulnerable. When money is borrowed and instead of fighting a disease is diverted to other corrupt ventures, we all suffer the same. We've seen our people die. We will continue to see our people die, and we'll cry until we make an effort to try and get rid of the Museveni dictatorship. The fight is not over. We are continuing, and everybody must get involved. Do everything you do. Do all you can, and do it with all your might to ensure that we overcome this. Because, man, if we don't, then we are sentencing our children and our children's children to this effort again. I congratulate the people of Zambia. They just got rid of an autocratic leader. We too can do the same. I also want to take this opportunity to wish our brother who is on camera a happy birthday, Elvis Kolovazi. It's his birthday today. Did you know that?
Oh, there you go.
Happy birthday, my brother. To our brothers who are in jail, those that are incarcerated, I know that some of you may not be able to see us, but we continue to fight. You see now the dictator is shaking. He comes out to deny the things that he's doing. Why? Because that is pressure from the citizens. That is pressure from the international community. He knows that what he's doing is wrong. He sees that Bashir is being taken to the ICC. And Museveni knows that he is next online. So he's trying to clean himself so that he throws this to the candy holes of this world, to others. But we are coming for you, Mr. Dictator, and you can run, but you cannot hide. I can guarantee you that one day, all this brutality will be paid for. I thank you.
Thank you so much. That is Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi'S Sentamu, and we're coming to the end of this conversation. I really want to thank those who have been online. We didn't have an interview. We always root for a conversation. We've had a conversation once in a while. Those who have actually picked one or two things, you can run with it. I'm Andrew Magere, connecting back to studio with my colleague Romeo Busiku. If you can hear me, that's all the NUP president can say right here from Magere. Good morning.